around 2 years ago, the at the time of manga for Fairy Tail had ended. We'd gotten past Acnologia, he'd been defeated, and it looked like, everything had come to a close. The odd thing about that is we weren't given Acnologia's backstory at the time, it was skipped over. And through whatever reason, Hiramashima did not put it in the manga, and he said like he just didn't really want to interrupt what was going on to put it in the story. I don't know about that. I still have my own theories of what happened behind the scenes and why this the pacing of the series picked up so heavily. But regardless of that, we now have his story in the anime because at the time of like shortly after chapter 545 came out, and as we knew at the time the series had ended, we didn't know about 100 Years Quest, and we were given a little bit of a hint at a con where he mentioned that he had it all done, he just wasn't able to put it in the manga for X reasons, and he teased that we were going to be getting stuff in the manga or in the anime that we didn't get in the manga. So for 2 years I'd been holding on to the hope that we get his backstory, and we ended up getting it, and I was very, very pleased by both the reveal of it that we got like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was very pleased with the backstory itself. So essentially, we already know that the dragons and the humans didn't really get along for the most part because dragons were the by far dominant species, and a lot of them liked to eat humans. But there were some dragons that liked humans. There were some that were in the same kingdom. Irene, they had a strongholded kingdom that revolved around the peace between dragons and humans. But here we have the village where who would be later named Acnologia lived at. He had what seems to be just straight translated into secret mountains, the secret mountains, or whatever it be, mountain secrets, or whatever it translates. I think it's like Montes Secreta or something, but I think it's Spanish. But from that, we know that they were kind of like able to coexist because they were hiding from everything else. They were able to be kept hidden and safe because of the guardian dragon, who actually was the one named Acnologia, because the character that we know mainly as Acnologia is not his real name. He was just called the Doctor at that point, and later he became Acnologia, years and years down the line. He talked with the guardian dragon who talked about the ominous rumor that he heard that somewhere out in the world that they had dragon slaying magic created and humans were able to fight dragons, and he wanted to go check that out. The Doctor was very very nervous about it. He also, I think, it was really interesting is he already had like a little bit of a complexity about wanting to become more powerful, but for him it was to heal, because he could only like stop bleeding and like mend like basic wounds. He couldn't like full do like large scale healing spells, regeneration essentially. But from that, that was his thing to become stronger. And once Acnologia the Dragon Guardian leaves, and through enough time for him to grow his like manageable hair to that amazingly long and luxurious head of hair that he had, at the time of return, the dragons just immediately went on a rampage. They wanted to kill the humans. I'm guessing that they felt that humans were too dangerous, because now that they have dragon slaying magic, there's the question of when they're going to turn on them as well. And for them, it'd much safer to take out the potential threat than let it sit around and grow and potentially become your demise. And I did like that the only reason the Doctor lived is because he could heal himself. And once he got a chance to get away, he pretty much just went over like his whole hatred for the dragons and how helpless and weak he felt. He wasn't able to do anything. All the people of his village were slaughtered and burnt, and just he was the only one left. And because of that, he wanted to obtain dragon slaying magic and go out and pretty much just take care of all of them. And not just dragons. He also wanted to take care of humans that were pretty much creating the cause, like adding to the issue. Like there was a village he went to, like a little fishing town, and they were sacrificing people to a dragon nearby. And he said, they were, sacrificing. Also, just side note, this Mr. Miyagi Gremlin style dragon, I loved looking at him. It's very weird, but I just wanted to mention that. But the fact that you had some people who were willingly giving up other humans in order to satiate this dragon, that he was only adding to the cause. They were just as bad. They were helping create this dangerous environment and just further pushing the egos of dragons higher up and keeping them in power. Also, just the fact that we got a scene where he tore a dragon's skull and a half was vicious. I didn't expect that at all. But he ended up forgetting his name, like a long period of time of just the only thing he was able to retain was the memory and hatred that he had towards dragons, but the name specifically of the one that he blamed the most for turning on, that being Acnologia. So he took the name of what he hated most, what was his driving force. He would forever be known as that thing that, is constantly reminding him, keep going, keep going, keep going. This is why you're doing this. His name became a reminder of what he caused him all this agony and this hatred. And we did get to see Sonya a little bit, and Zirconis and Animus, and just brief moments of them before Acnologia completely destroyed them. But I really liked the fact that we end up seeing not only like what made him who he is, what really started him out, and just it was that just complete and total build up, this avalanche of hate and negativity. His despised emotions for these dragons just kept piling and piling and piling. Just it's like a snowball. You go downhill, and it's going to keep picking up more snow, and just every single rotation and turn, it's going to be getting bigger, heavier, faster, more vicious, more dangerous, and that's what really Acnologia became. Was even in the name, like he took the name Acnologia, he took what he hated, and he ended up not only becoming what he hated in name, like he took on the name again of the primary source of his aggression, but he ended up becoming that very destructive, all-around danger that he despised so much. And there were a lot of like interesting tie-ins, like I was looking at, because we know that the dragonification from the dragon seed, when they lose control of dragon slaying magic, eventually turns into a dragon. We know from Irene that there's a level to it that can turn them rabid. That was one of the things explained to them. It would mess with their mind. It would kind of like add in like a savage nature to them. It would cause them to be a bit unstable. That was like in the explanation. We also found out pretty much how motion sickness worked. But Acnologia, he just kept, at the start of the series, he was just like, I want to become stronger, but to help. And when it came down to it, the things that he was trying to also help ended up turning for him. And what was he going to do at that point? He couldn't, was he just going to hide and completely break away from everything else? No, he wanted to try and end that. But, the whole like goal partially, like, you have a doctor who went from healing to destruction, to killing. And he even says like he wanted all this power to stop people from bleeding, but now he needs more power to make these dragons bleed and suffer more. And when you really look at all this, it's just this strong, this like heavy slippery slope of what drove Acnologia to being where he is now. That just complete and total want to keep going, to further driving them into extinction. The more hatred, the more aggression, the more like absolute vicious nature that kept just building up over time ended up warping his mentality. Like he gets mad when he's talking to Natsu near the end of his battle, where he says that the idea of a dragon being good is it's pretty much unbelievable to him. It's almost insulting to his mind, because it's not like for him, it's just like, oh, I just hate dragons. So, it's not like with Zareth. Zareth had a dragon kill his family, and you could be like, oh, I hate dragons because that. Obviously, Zareth didn't, but if you have some similar occurrence like that, like, man, a dragon destroyed my village or whatever. I hate dragons. Acnologia is just way more just kind of like tormenting in thought, because it wasn't just like a raw blind hatred through some event that was like, oh, a dragon did something, well, all dragons must be this terrible. He lived in a society where dragons were peaceful, where they were nice to them, where they got along. They knew that the peace was possible, but at the first sign of danger, they turned on them. None of the humans in the mountains ended up trying to learn dragon slaying magic. Acnologia only learned after, when he was the lone survivor, after he saw just that absolute distrust and defilement of what they ended up building together. So he turned every single one of these negative, like strong, or one of these strong positive aspirations, all these wants to, to save all these people, protect, to heal, and to mend people for the better, was all destroyed in front of him. So what he decided to really do was find that those things that cause the suffering, pain, and destruction, and instill that same level of agony to them, if not greater. Because it got to the point where he forgot his own name, and just all the blood kept trickling down, and it just further progressing him, making him want more. Like he says, every single time he ends up killing another dragon, it gives him much more of an unsatiated hunger. It makes him want to do more. He ended up liking killing the dragons. Like I said, he ended up becoming too much like that of what he wanted to be against. And then that was such like a cool, like almost ironic sense of story of what is that? What is that one's phrase from Batman? Like if you what is it? What's that one? It's like something about like you live long enough to become. I can't. It's funny that I can't even remember the proper quote that I'm making that I decided to bring up in here. But you know what it is. Somebody's gonna correct me in the comments probably, but you know what I mean. Acnologia wanted to do this for the better, and he was a little bit more of an anti-hero at the start, rather. Like he went around hunting bad dragons, and then humans he saw assisting with them. He went for as well, but it just kept getting more vicious, and at one point it just cracked at him, and he just decided that destroy it all, cause that same level of destruction. When you have this idea of dragons are this bad, and you end up enjoying killing them, you become a dragon yourself with this hunger for power and for bloodshed. You end up becoming the king of that idea that you despise so much, which again was such a nice way to turn his story, because it wasn't like, oh, something bad happened and he decided to become a bad guy. It was this very nice built up structure of wanting peace and wanting nice things, and to have it torn away from him by the people he trusted most, by the creatures he was trying to build this world of tranquility and prosperity and just all around coexistence. And really from that, it was what just drove him. Because it wasn't like, oh, something bad happened. Like, you got to keep in mind, this was dragons and humans were coexisting. This wasn't like interestingly enough, looking over at Ravemaster, there's one of the villains, Doryu. He ended up wanting to build a city where humans and the monster people could live, and it started out well at first, but as soon as some issues happened, there was a lot of like racial problems, and the humans ended up driving out all of the monster people, and he ended up getting pretty much shackled up and thrown in like a dark prison, and just drove himself into madness. That was like oh cool, let's try and start this coexistence in peace, and then like, oh, it worked for 5 seconds, then it went bad. This was a long sense of peace and well-being between them, and for the dragons to turn on them so quickly, it had to just be a complete and total, like, almost defiling of like his whole being, of like everything he viewed out in the world. Like, what does he have left? He doesn't have his village. He didn't have his want to heal. Like, his anger was already too much for him, and he didn't have any reason to help these dragons, because he already knew good dragons, and they decided to turn on him and just end them like nothing. There was no real attempt to try and make peace with them. No real attempt to try and like keep these humans away from dragon slaying magic, or to really see who would turn on them or not. It was just eradicate the potential problem. So all around, really good story. I really loved how Acnologia's story had really developed. Acnologia was just such an enjoyable character throughout the story, and it was such a shame that we didn't get his backstory until now. And like, we had Zeref. Zeref is still, I think, in my personal opinion, Zeref is my favorite in Shonen. Zeref is my overall favorite villain in Shonen. But Acnologia was he's pretty up there for me as well. Like, in terms of like, he was intimidating. He had a really cool display every time he was on screen. He was doing something impressive. He has a great design. He was just all around an entertaining like bad guy. He was this complete and total overwhelming titan of power, because that's the difference between him and Zeref. Zareth was like this hard to kill, very tricky person who had this vast amount of resources and intelligence, whereas Acnologia was just this all around dominating force of just immeasurable, unbounding power, and that's what we got from him. The only thing that it fell short when we didn't get his backstory, and like I said, it's absolutely just so enjoyable and so fulfilling and all around satisfying to get his story now, and we can really like tie up him as a character. So, and I mean, and especially now because like one of the things that I thought about with Hundred Years Quest is you could do like flashbacks and give Acnologia moments through flashbacks of the dragon gods and maybe any other dragons hiding with them, like maybe like a couple more off, like with Viernus and his hidden city or whatever his deal is. And you end up seeing more about Acnologia from their perspective. I don't think we'd probably get much of it if possible if we didn't get his main backstory first, because obviously we needed to know a lot of areas of his tale before we ended up getting more expansion of him as this crazed dragon hunting wizard who ends up becoming the same thing that he longed to destroy so much. But now we got it, so we could get more of like seeing it from other people's perspective of these helpless dragons that ended up striving and hiding, running off into shelter and fear this being that was created by the paranoia of dragons. So fantastic! I loved it. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Like and so far, like I've only seen one person mad about it, but yeah, it was one individual that I've known to be a bit of a troll. So it doesn't really bother me too much. But I would like to know what the general consensus of you what you guys did. Other than that, like I said, comment below. Thumbs up the video button, the like button, and the subscribe button. And check out my other videos. But I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.